I was standing in my backyard, surrounded by decorations I'd hung myself, when my mother walked out and destroyed everything with 10 words. Your sister needs peace tonight, Iris. We've cancelled your birthday. Just like that. Casual. Easy. Like she was cancelling a dentist appointment, not my 18th birthday, not the one night I'd spent years planning in my head. The streamers were still swaying in the warm Arizona breeze. My grandmother's chocolate chip cookies sat cooling on the table. The string lights buzzed softly overhead, casting this golden glow over chairs that would never be filled. And I just stood there. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I walked over to the cake, and one by one, I blew out candles that were never even lit. And with each breath, something inside me changed. Something quiet and sharp and final. My parents thought my silence meant I'd accepted it. That I'd just take it like I always did. They had no idea my silence was actually the beginning of everything that would come crashing down around them. My name is Iris. And if you'd met my family from the outside, you'd probably think we had it all figured out. We were one of those families people actually envied. Neat hedges, warm porch lights, family vacation photos lining the hallway in matching frames. Everything looked perfect because my parents worked incredibly hard to keep it that way. At least where other people could see. But inside, I learned pretty early that perfection had a price. And somehow, I was always the one paying it. Growing up with Natasha, my older sister, meant learning to step aside before I even understood what stepping aside meant. She was 5 years older, infinitely louder, and according to my mother, more sensitive. That word followed her everywhere. Sensitive when she didn't like the color of her room. Sensitive when she refused to eat what everyone else was having. Sensitive when she slammed doors so hard the entire house shook. Whenever Natasha spiraled, our whole house reshaped itself around her moods. And me, quiet, adaptable, stronger than she is, as Mom liked to say, I was just expected to understand. Just let her have it, Iris. You're good at sharing. Those words followed me through childhood like a shadow I couldn't shake. I don't think my parents ever meant to teach me invisibility. But intentions don't erase impact, do they? Natasha got the new clothes. I got her, still perfectly good, hand-me-downs. She picked the TV shows. I watched whatever was left. She got the bigger bedroom. I got the one Mom said had better morning light, as if sunlight could somehow compensate for always feeling second. I remember being 12, standing in Natasha's old room while she moved into the master bedroom upstairs. My parents had repainted it lavender, her favorite color, and bought her a new desk, new curtains, everything matching and fresh. Meanwhile, I carried my stuff into her old room, with its scuffed walls and the sticker residue she'd left behind. Mom squeezed my shoulder and said, "This room gets the most beautiful sunrise, honey. You'll love it." I wanted to love it. I really tried. But no amount of morning light could fill the space where being chosen should have been. Still, I tried not to resent it. I really did. I told myself every family had its imbalances, right? And if I just stayed patient, maybe things would even out one day. That belief kept me steady for years. But turning 18 felt different. It felt like a milestone that was supposed to belong to me. My parents had even suggested throwing a backyard celebration, something small but meaningful. I helped shop for decorations, strung up the lights myself, baked those cookies using the recipe my grandmother taught me before she passed. I can still remember her hands guiding mine as we folded the dough, her soft voice saying, "These will be for your special days, sweetheart. The days that matter." I didn't know then that she wouldn't be here to see this one. But making those cookies felt like keeping her with me, like maybe she'd still be part of my 18th birthday even though she was gone. For the first time in my life, it felt like maybe, just maybe, the spotlight would shift. Even briefly. Maybe that's why the emptiness stung so sharply when I finally realized what was happening. The untouched plates. The silent phone. The sunset sinking behind our fence while I waited for people who were never coming. I'd invited 12 people. 12. Friends from school, a couple of cousins, even my best friend since middle school, Paige, who'd promised she wouldn't miss it for anything. I watched the clock tick from 6 to 7, then 7 to 8. I refreshed my phone so many times the screen left marks on my thumb. At 7:30, I texted Paige, Hey, are you close? Nothing. I texted my cousin Elena, everything okay? Just checking in. Nothing. That's when the knot in my stomach started tightening into something uglier. Something that whispered the truth I didn't want to hear. Because deep down, I think I knew the truth long before Mom said it out loud. In this family, even my 18th birthday couldn't belong to me. By the time the sky turned fully dark, the backyard felt like a stage after all the actors had abandoned the play. The streamers fluttered. The lights buzzed. And every part of me tried to make sense of the silence pressing down on everything. I kept checking my phone, refreshing my messages, convincing myself there had to be a traffic delay or a mix-up with the time. Anything but this. But nothing came. No texts. No calls. Just nothing. At 9 o'clock, the quiet became too loud to stand anymore, so I finally walked inside. My parents were curled up on the couch, the TV casting this pale glow across their faces. They didn't look startled when they saw me standing there. Just mildly annoyed, like I'd interrupted something important. They were watching some home renovation show, my dad with his feet up, my mom with a glass of wine in her hand. Comfortable. Relaxed. Like nothing was wrong. Where is everyone? I asked. My voice came out thinner than I meant it to. My dad, Richard, didn't even look up from the remote. We canceled the party, Iris. You know how delicate Natasha is right now. I stared at them, waiting for a punchline that never came. You canceled my 18th birthday, because Natasha's upset she couldn't go on her trip. My mom, Caroline, sighed in that way she always did when she thought I was being unreasonable. She's been crying for 2 days, honey. You know how hard this week has been on her. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. She's 23. I'm the one turning 18. My mom set down her wine glass slowly, like I was the one being difficult. Iris, we thought you'd understand. You've always been so mature about these things. Natasha is going through a really hard time right now. Her trip falling through. Her trip fell through because she didn't book her flight on time, I interrupted. That's not a crisis. That's just life. My dad finally looked at me. Don't be insensitive. Insensitive. That word. Coming from them. Before either of them could answer, footsteps echoed from the stairs. Natasha appeared, wrapped in a satin robe, her hair perfectly brushed despite her supposed meltdown. She leaned against the railing like she was gracing us with her presence. What's with all the yelling? She asked, voice dripping with boredom. You're stressing me out. Something inside me snapped. Not loud, not explosive, just sharp and clean, like a wire breaking. You canceled my birthday for her tantrum, I said, pointing at her. Natasha blinked slowly, then actually smirked. If I can't have fun today, neither should you. It's just basic empathy, Iris. Empathy. The word landed like a slap across my face. For years, I'd been told to empathize with her moods, her wants, her crises. But she had never once been asked to empathize with mine. Every family dinner cut short because Natasha was overwhelmed. Every holiday rearranged around her schedule. Every conversation that ended with, just be understanding, Iris. And now this. My 18th birthday. The one day that was supposed to be about me. I'm done, I whispered. More to myself than to them. The room fell silent for just a beat, long enough for everyone to feel something shift in the air. Then the doorbell rang. We all froze. My mom's face went pale. My dad finally muted the TV. Natasha rolled her eyes, clearly annoyed by yet another disruption to her comfort. But when the door opened and I saw who was standing there, my grandfather, Henry Palmer, tall and steady, taking in the entire scene with one sweeping look, I knew the night was about to change direction. And for the first time all day, I actually hoped it would. Henry didn't step inside at first. He just stood in the doorway, scanning each of our faces like he already knew he'd walked into a disaster. His eyes landed on Natasha's robe, my dad's muted TV, the untouched decoration still visible through the sliding glass door. What's going on here? He asked. His voice was low but sharp enough to cut through the tension. No one answered, so he looked directly at me. I didn't try to hide the redness around my eyes or the way my hands were trembling slightly. For once, I didn't feel the urge to protect the family image. They canceled my birthday, I said quietly. Because Natasha was upset. Henry's expression darkened. Not dramatic, not loud, just this tightening around his jaw that meant more than shouting ever could. He stepped inside, closing the door with a controlled click. Is that true? He asked my dad. Richard swallowed hard. It was complicated. It wasn't complicated, I said, my voice stronger now. They lied to everyone. Told them I was sick so no one would show up. My mom flinched. Natasha scoffed. Henry turned back to my parents. You canceled her 18th birthday, for a tantrum. Natasha bristled. I wasn't having a tantrum. My trip was ruined. I was overwhelmed. Henry stared at her with the kind of silence that makes people shrink. You're 23, he said flatly. And she's 18. Then he looked at my parents. And you catered to that. The room was so quiet I could hear the ceiling fan ticking. My dad finally cracked. Henry, you don't understand how sensitive she gets. We were trying to avoid a bigger problem. Henry let out a slow breath. Disappointed. I've supported this family for years, he said, his tone even but unwavering. I thought I was helping you raise 2 daughters with fairness and dignity. But what I'm seeing tonight, that's not dignity. My mom looked startled. Henry, please. He cut her off with one lifted hand. Then he turned to me, his voice softening in a way it never had for anyone else in that house. Iris, do you want to leave with me? The question hit deeper than I expected. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because no one had ever given me a choice before. My whole life had been about adapting, accommodating, making myself smaller so Natasha could take up more space. But now someone was asking me what I wanted. Yes, I said. Not loud. Not shaking. Just certain. I saw it then, the moment something cracked behind my mom's eyes. Not fear of losing me. Fear of what my leaving meant for them. Fear of what Henry might do. Fear of how it would look to everyone else. Henry nodded once. Go pack, sweetheart. And for the first time in 18 years, I walked upstairs without looking back. I packed faster than I ever had in my life. Not because I was afraid someone would stop me, but because for the first time, the weight in my chest felt like it was lifting. Each folded shirt, each book I tucked into my bag, each quiet click of a zipper felt like reclaiming something I didn't even know I'd lost. I grabbed my favorite hoodie, the one Natasha had always tried to borrow. My journal, filled with thoughts I'd never been able to say out loud. The photo of my grandmother and me baking together, tucked into a frame on my nightstand. My laptop, my chargers, the few things that actually felt like mine. My room had always felt temporary, like a place I was borrowing, not a place I belonged. But now, walking out of it with everything that was mine, it finally made sense why. When I came downstairs with my suitcase, the air was tight enough to touch. My mom stood near the kitchen island, arms crossed, her face crumbling between disbelief and insult. My dad hovered behind the couch, looking completely helpless. Natasha sat on the bottom stair, legs crossed, staring at her nails like this whole night was just inconveniencing her. Henry stood by the front door, waiting for me like he'd been doing it my whole life. Ready? He asked. I nodded. But before we could leave, my mom stepped forward. Iris, sweetheart, don't be impulsive. Your sister didn't mean to hurt you. We can fix this. We can plan another celebration. You canceled the one I had, I said, not raising my voice. And you didn't even tell me. It was a misunderstanding, my dad added weakly. No, I replied. It was a pattern. That shut him up. Natasha let out a dramatic huff. Oh my God, Iris, stop acting like a martyr. It was just a birthday. People cancel things all the time. I turned to her slowly. You're right. People do cancel things. But only in this house does one daughter have to disappear for the other to feel okay. She rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. Henry stepped closer. Enough. Everyone paused. He wasn't loud. He wasn't angry. But the authority in his voice rearranged the entire room. I'll say this once, Henry told my parents. You've treated Iris like an afterthought for years. And tonight proved it. I won't be part of it anymore. My dad's face went pale. My mom's lips parted, ready to plead. Henry, no. No, he said simply. This isn't a negotiation. He motioned toward the door, and I followed him outside. The night air felt cooler than it had before. Softer against my skin, like the world itself was opening a new door. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Because the next morning, my phone started buzzing non-stop. At first, it was my mom. Please come home so we can talk. We didn't mean for things to get so emotional. Then my dad, your mom and I want to apologize. Natasha is very fragile right now. We were trying to manage everything the best we could. Fragile. Of course. Then Natasha, predictably, you're ruining the whole family over a party. Grow up, Iris. I didn't respond to any of them. Henry made me breakfast, eggs, toast, a bowl of fruit he cut himself. Everything felt calm. Steady. A life that actually made sense. A life that didn't revolve around someone else's tantrums. We sat at his kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window, and he looked at me over his coffee. You're safe here, he said, for as long as you need. Those words settled something in me I didn't know was still trembling. For a week, I lived in actual peace. No yelling. No walking on eggshells. My boyfriend Finn walked me home from school every day, checking in without needing explanations. Henry helped me look at colleges and scholarships, proud of every single step I took. But my parents didn't stop. They escalated. We miss you. We want to fix things. You belong home. Then finally, if you want to return, tell us what you need from us. So I did. I sent them one message. Natasha needs to move out. Permanently. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. If they chose her again, even when it meant losing me, then I'd finally have my answer. I'd finally know for sure where I stood in this family. My dad responded first, we can discuss it. Then my mom, we just want our family whole again. But Natasha, she sent nothing. 2 days of silence. On the third day, while I was walking home with Finn from school, a silver car idled near the curb. My stomach dropped the second I saw who was leaning against it. Natasha. She pushed off the hood the moment she spotted me. We need to talk. Not without him, I said, nodding toward Finn. She sneered at him. I'm not talking to your guard dog. Then you're not talking to me, I replied. Her jaw tightened. You're destroying mom and dad. They're a mess. They haven't slept. They're terrified Henry's going to cut them off. I stopped walking. Terrified of losing money. Not terrified of losing me. You're twisting things. No, I'm telling the truth. That's when she completely snapped. She lunged at me, grabbing my wrist hard enough to bruise. Finn stepped between us instantly, pulling her off me with ease. Walk away, he told her, voice firm. But Natasha, in perfect Natasha fashion, escalated instead. You think you're better than me now? Living with Grandpa? You're nothing without this family. I was nothing in this family, I said. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. But I did lift my hand and give her one clear warning. If you touch me again, I will call the police. Her eyes widened, not from fear, but from disbelief that someone had finally told her no. She didn't follow us after that, because she knew that line wasn't moving. That night, I told Henry everything. He wanted to call the police immediately, but I shook my head. She got the message, I said. That's enough. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I'm proud of you. And I believed him. Because unlike my parents, Henry had never given me a reason not to. 2 days later, my parents finally responded to my ultimatum. And their message told me everything I needed to know. We've decided Natasha will continue living with us. You've shown us you can't be trusted. You're manipulative, jealous, and ungrateful. We only wanted you back to help repair things with Henry, but we'll manage without you. I read it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I needed to let it sink in. They'd actually said it. Out loud. In writing. They only wanted me back to fix things with Henry. Not because they missed me. Not because they loved me. Because I was useful. The words didn't hurt. They confirmed what I'd known for years. So I blocked them. All of them. And for the first time in my life, the silence felt like freedom. Natasha tried to post something online about toxic siblings, but it backfired instantly. Everyone knew the truth by then. Every cousin, every aunt, every person who used to fill our house with holiday chatter. They all drifted away from my parents. Turns out, the image of a perfect family doesn't survive 2 weeks without the person who was holding up their corner of it. The fall was slow at first, then sudden. My dad's accounting office lost clients. People in our small community talk, and word spreads fast. My mom pulled away from her friends, too embarrassed to show her face at book club or yoga class. Natasha eventually moved out, not by choice, but because the house was shrinking under all the tension, all the blame they were throwing at each other now that I wasn't there to absorb it. And I watched it all from a distance. Quietly. Without interference. Without satisfaction. Or maybe with a kind of satisfaction that didn't need a spotlight. Because I didn't destroy their life. I simply stepped out of the space they'd kept me trapped in. And the emptiness revealed what had been cracking long before I ever left. Life at Henry's house settled into this rhythm so gentle it almost felt unreal. Mornings were quiet, sunlight slipping through the kitchen windows, the smell of fresh coffee, the soft scrape of Henry's newspaper against the table. No slammed doors. No whispered arguments behind walls. No walking on eggshells, bracing for someone else's mood. For the first time, my days belonged to me. I focused on school, on applications, on the future I'd never been allowed to imagine. When my acceptance letter came from a university in northern Arizona, Henry hugged me like I'd given him a second life. "You earned this," he said. "Every bit of it." And I had. Every late night studying, every scholarship essay, every moment I pushed through the chaos to build something for myself, it had all led here. Fame drove me to tour the campus one weekend, and the drive felt strangely symbolic. Open road, pine trees, no detours back into old pain. We weren't rushing anything, but being around him made everything feel lighter. Steadier. He was someone who didn't expect me to shrink so others could breathe. Meanwhile, news about my parents reached me in small fragments. Through relatives who still spoke to Henry. Through friends who'd seen Natasha moving boxes into a tiny apartment across town. The perfect picture they'd spent years curating had finally cracked beyond repair. They weren't ruined, not in a dramatic way. Just unraveling. Quietly. Naturally. Exactly how I had left. I didn't celebrate it. Didn't post about it. Didn't send a single, "I told you so." That wasn't the point. Watching from afar, I realized something simple and surprising. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted peace. And I had it. One evening, sitting on Henry's back patio, I looked at the mountain line glowing under the setting sun and felt something loosen inside me. A final thread snapping free. Leaving hadn't broken me. It had rebuilt me. If there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's this: sometimes the loudest decision you'll ever make is walking away. My parents thought my silence meant surrender. But it became the only boundary they couldn't twist or ignore. And once I stepped out of their shadow, my life finally began to feel like mine. Steady, simple, real. If any part of my story feels familiar to you, know this: you're not dramatic. You're not ungrateful. And you're not alone. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about family boundaries, finding your voice, and choosing yourself when no one else will. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save yourself.